Hi, my name is Niels, and today we're going to make some comparisons between Bohrium, our new distance driver, with some of the other faster discs in disc golf. I'm gonna compare them by throwing them, which I already did yesterday, and then we're going to talk about the physics, and then we're going to talk about the comfort or the grip on the discs. So first off, I have 3 less stable and 3 overstable discs. For the understable ones, I have this Raketen by Latitude 64, which has dimples on the surface and on the underside of the rim, with the purpose of lowering drag. It's also super wide, I think it's 24 millimeters. Next up we have K by Discwing. This disc is out of production. It has a rounded rim like Bohrium, but not as rounded. It's also a bit deeper and doesn't have as wide of a rim. And lastly, I have one of the first prototypes, or the first prototype run of Bohrium, and this one is a bit more understable than the production run eventually will be. So next up we have the Katana by Innova discs, and this one is actually only speed 13, but it has a wider rim than the Corvette, which is a speed 14, or any other disc that I know of from Innova. As far as I can tell, this should be one of the fastest discs in their lineup. And even though it says -3 in turn and 3 in fade, it's actually quite overstable. And next up we have the Rask by Kastaplast. It has this double rim, which is supposed to lower the drag under the flight plate as well. And it also has a less wide rim compared to the other discs we have here. And lastly, we have a more overstable run, proto run of Bohrium. This is from the run that we sent out for reviews. This one is a bit more overstable than the production run eventually will be. So as I mentioned, I went out to throw these yesterday, so I think we should take a look at the results. For the 3 less stable discs, I threw backhand shots because I thought that's where I could get the most distance out of them. And for the Bohrium, I got a 127 meter throw and an average of 111 meters. I did get 1 bad release, and generally this is very representative for my maximum distance. It might be a little bit too overstable still for my desired maximum distance, but it's definitely some good results for me. Next up, the Raketen. I got some really nice throws with this one as well. I got 126 meters as maximum distance, so it's pretty much the same as the Bohrium. But this one is also much more understable, so it fits my distance throw with the backhand much better. But it did get some good results. The average distance was 109.2 meters. And lastly, we have the K. This one didn't get super good results. The furthest throw was 113 meters, and the average distance was 95.4. It was not super easy for me to get a good flight out of it, and even when I did, it didn't fly very far for some reason. But we'll talk about that later. And for the more overstable discs, I threw the forehand. Again, Bohrium went furthest. I got 129 meters as a maximum distance from this one, and an average of 110.8. For the Katana, I mentioned it was pretty overstable, but it wasn't actually as overstable as I remember. So I didn't get any super good results out of this. I think the furthest throw was 108 meters, but that was on a super high hyzer, which is actually pretty far for that. For that kind of throw. And the average was 97.6 meters. And lastly, the Rask by Kastaplast. It actually went pretty far on most throws. I didn't really have any bad releases with this one, but the maximum distance was only 112 meters, but the average distance was 110.2. So it was very consistent, but it didn't fly super far, at least not for maximum distance. So I threw 5 shots with each disc, so you could argue that you need more throws to make accurate comparisons. But at least out of these throws, the Bohrium got the longest distance, both on the max distance and the average distance on both forehand and backhand. But not by a significant margin. But I think that has to do with the stability. It's not, at least for the backhand, it's not the ideal stability for my backhand form or backhand arm speed. But with the forehand, I have to say it's completely ridiculous how much more distance I get out of the Bohrium compared to any other distance driver. I have never thrown a disc with the forehand more than 122 meters other than Bohrium. But Bohrium, I've hit 128, 129, 133, 136, and now 138 meters. So it's very, very clear for me to see that when the stability fits your type of throw and your arm speed, it really does fly farther than anything else. If you are good at getting Anheuser releases, you can get the same improvement from throwing it with the backhand. But for me, when I try to throw Anheuser, which I have to get maximum distance out of these discs, I tend to get some air bounce. I don't have the best technique for the backhand distance line. So even though you might not throw as hard as I do, you might still be better at throwing Anheuser, and in that way achieve better results than I did. And one thing more to note, the maximum distance for the backhand throw for me, that was on a super low line, which is exactly the statement we bring up in the Kickstarter campaign, that you can reach this distance on a much lower line than you would do with the other distance drivers. So I'm pretty happy with the results for the throwing. Let's talk a little bit about the comfort and the grip on the discs. So the Raketen, it has these dimples, and you just grab where the dimples are. Feels kind of weird, but they made these small, smooth surface areas for your fingers, for your thumb. And I guess all in all, this one feels like pretty much any other maximum distance driver. It does catch a lot of dirt, and the stamps aren't super great on this surface, but other than that, I don't think there's any real downsides to this design, in terms of comfort and So next up is the Katana, which is obviously the widest rim, and this is also comparable to other super wide rim discs. And I think this one is, I don't find it super comfortable. It's just a little bit too wide, and it doesn't feel super good on my index finger. For forehand, it feels fine, but once again, I didn't get the best releases out of this disc, so it probably isn't the perfect disc for me, at least. Next up is the Quarter K. I actually expected this to feel really good because it's a little bit deeper than Bohrium, and it isn't as rounded. But what I found was that I actually got a lot of bad releases with this disc. It is so deep that my index finger doesn't fully reach the fly plate, which for some reason is an issue for me. Up next we have the Rask. I would say this one actually, the concept is that they made a less wide rim and made this double rim instead. And I know some people don't like the double rim. I think for the forehand it actually felt quite nice, or it wasn't a problem at least. And for the backhand, I think it might be a little bit of an issue with my index finger hitting the double rim or the secondary rim. But all in all, I don't think it's too bad for the grip. And lastly, we have Bohrium. So actually, this earlier run, we retooled the mold after this run and got another type of plastic. This one is actually, the rounding is a little bit bigger, and for some reason, this one, it slips a little bit out of my hand, which this one doesn't. This one feels perfect for my likings. My index finger can reach the flight plate, and despite its width on the rim, and it generally feels really good. The plastic is grippy, and it's nice and domey. So for me this is a really nice grip for a maximum distance driver. But check it out for yourself. At least for me, it's great comfort for the Bohrium. So let's move on to talk a little bit about physics. For a regular wide rim distance driver compared to, say, a fairway driver, the increased rim width makes this area inside the disc smaller, which is the area where drag is generated. This is one of the reasons why these wider rim discs are faster and has less drag. Also, the wind is being redirected more or less the same direction of that the air already has, instead of being redirected downwards like it would with a putter. And all in all, these are the factors that make a wide rim distance driver much faster than slower speed discs. So next up, we have the Raketen by Latitude, and this one, as I mentioned, has the dimples on the surface. Generally speaking, the dimples are aiming to do the same thing that dimples do on golf balls, where it helps the air behind the disc, helps the streamline merge much more easily than it does with at least for a golf ball, with a smooth sphere. That's a terrible word to say. Okay, sorry. And I can't say for sure that this doesn't improve the aerodynamics for a distance driver in disc golf, but from our results, the wind speed is simply not fast enough for the dimples to make a difference. And this is why we didn't pursue this concept ourselves. We haven't been able to prove that you can, for a disc golf disc, throw it fast enough to actually gain an advantage with the dimples. Yeah, once again, it's not to say that it doesn't make a difference, but you definitely have to throw it really, really, really fast in order to gain the advantage. All right, next up we have the Quarter K by Discwing, and this one, as I mentioned, also has the rounded rim, but it also has a slightly larger diameter. I think it's 21.3 or 21.4 centimeters in diameter, and it's deeper than all the other discs here. And lastly, the rim isn't as wide. I think it's 22 millimeters. So all these factors, I'm afraid they cancel out the advantage you actually get by rounding the rim. As I mentioned before, the Katana has very small area in here, both being shallow and have a wide diameter rim. It has a small area or volume in here where turbulence is created, where this one has a much larger area. So that's not to say the concept doesn't work, but it definitely it isn't as significant as it is on the Bohrium, that's for sure. So next up is the Rask by Casterplast. This concept is about reducing drag under the flight plate. You have the wind coming in here, and it creates a vortex under the flight plate. And this secondary rim helps to minimize this vortex and make a more smooth flow under the flight plate. And we actually did simulate this and can say with certainty it reduces the drag. The downside is that it takes some mass to make this secondary rim, and this mass can be utilized better by making a wider rim from our experience. So I think the purpose of this disc is to make a fast disc but isn't as wide as other fast discs, and I think they accomplished that, but it isn't significantly faster than the other discs available, at least not according to the simulations we have made previously. So for Bohrium, we utilized some of the advantages from some of the other discs. So we have the super wide rim, like the Katana, which reduces the area where drag is created or turbulence is created. We have the rounded rim that guides the air smoothly under the flight plate. And we have, which is pretty much the same concept that the secondary rim has. So all in all, we get a disc with a super low profile, a super wide rim, and a rounded rim. And all in all, this makes Bohrium the fastest driver in disc golf, at least for the time being. So yeah, I think it's time to sum up. All in all, Bohrium is pretty damn fast. Yeah, it flies really far, and it is a faster disc, and we know obviously that speed isn't everything in disc golf, but we think speed might be underrated when you want to achieve great distances. At least for me, it has pushed my limits significantly for my forehand distance, and eventually when we are able to make them in lighter weights and we get the production run that should be a little bit less stable, I am sure I'll be able to increase my maximum distance with the backhand as well. And as always, speed is a slight sacrifice of control, but at least from my experience, the difference isn't that much about the control as it is about the comfort. And for me at least, the comfort for the Bohrium is absolutely perfect. And yeah, I really think you should try the Bohrium out, no matter what you intend to use it for and no matter what arm speed you have, because there's definitely a use for it for everyone. So thanks for watching, and yeah, I hope you like this comparison and it gives you an impression of how fast discs compare to each other.